Welcome to Awake Radio. It's the 9th of the 9th, 2014. Granadas Workshop. You're listening to Awake Radio. Shiz Radio. 1800 online. These changing times with a Z. Turtle Island News. Just Us Radio. Live Pulse News. And United We Strike. The list is growing, guys. And welcome you to my show. I didn't really think I was going to be going to air tonight, guys. My health issues have been playing up. A small cold has hit our family, myself and Bex, and things aren't particularly good in that area concerning my breathing. But fortunately, Vin James, a long-time host at Awake Radio, he hasn't been on air very much recently because of life getting in the way. He wants to come on and have a wee rant about the Freeman movement, and I kind of like Vin's approach to the law stuff, if you like, to sort of categorise it, and I kind of agree actually with Vin's viewpoint on a lot of things, and I would like to listen a little bit more to what he has to say in that area, which I've done my apprenticeship in, and certainly I thought the concepts were good at the time, but I've found most of them don't really work, to be honest, and it'd be interesting to hear what Vin has to say. First off, before I bring Vin on around about the quarter of the hour, I really want to say a big thank you to everybody at Awake Radio, who is basically starting to come together a bit louder. Sky Blue. Okay, I'll try that. I agree. I tend not to be able to project my voice as much as I would like to. Okay. See if that's any better. You'll be able to tell in about 30 seconds or so. Threw me off my place. Anyway, the long and short is I didn't really have much of a show being going to do, but I really wanted to come to air anyway, and just say to folks for the help that's been given on the site. Recently, my health's been deteriorating. I've become very, very tired, and the long and short of it is that it's growing so fast, and there's so many things to do, and I just really run out of steam, essentially. There's been many people on the site that's helping, some more than others, but that's not really what the matter is. The matter is about just helping and doing whatever you can. And as I said about Vin earlier on, life has a habit of getting in the way, and I'm sure a lot of people would like to do a lot more on the site and various things than they can do because of life restraints. So please bear with us. Awake's been going through a little bit of an upheaval in the sense of vacations and illnesses and internets and so on. Guys, it's for us, we're amateurs. We're trying to do a professional job, and what I would say to you is that life does get in the way, and we'll just try and do as good a job as we possibly can. To that end, Alan mentioned on his show too about if you feel that you have it in you to either broadcast or produce or anything in that nature, deal with media, get the word out for us, or anything, because many hands make light work, and certainly we could do with hands to go in certain little areas where we know that we're getting the word out there, even if it's just posting to Facebook or something like that, all the different shows and so on. I would also like to try and get the word out a little bit more with Awake TV on YouTube. There was a kind of mess up of the link to subscribe on our YouTube channel. Google made an account and YouTube made an account, and of course the one we gave you to subscribe to was the Google account. So yeah, long and short it is, guys, if you can go to Awake Radio TV on YouTube, and if you could subscribe, you'll see them. There's lots of the Awake TV videos up there already. So if there's plenty up there, you know it's the right one. Awake TV. Yeah, thanks, Nimble Horse. I'll get to you in a wee second. All good, my friend. Yeah, Awake TV. You have a fantastic opportunity with Awake TV, guys. David is a man I've been speaking much more to lately. I really think we need a lot more like Dave. He's invested a lot of money, guys. Really an awful amount of money. Radio is nothing to run compared to the Awake TV. To that end, we don't really have a donate button or anything like that on the site. We don't fundraise because we really don't want to be part of the construct in that manner, and that's not just me, this is the other radios too. That may well change, where we may change and do some merchandising to a great degree. But as far as Awake TV is concerned, the overheads on a monthly basis are massive. 1 month's overheads, if you like, to do the TV would keep Awake Radio running for about 9 years. So you understand that it does need funding. So on the Awake TV page, we're trying to do as much as we can, as quickly as we can, with limited resources, if you like. And on the Awake TV, there will be the TV player, also the chat. There'll be a podcast of David and Neil on Reality Bites, explaining the amount of funding required for Awake TV. And we shall be putting a donate button there for Awake TV, which is Live Pulse News, guys. And we'll also put in a subscribe button up there too. Don't quite exactly know what the deal is with the subscribe button, but certainly we will get that kind of thing in progress if Dave wants it to be. What I was saying to you about sort of not putting a donate button and so on, really is our ethos. We don't want to be controlled with anybody, and we don't want to be begging for money either. Awake Radio has never been in a position where it's close to the edge of going under because of finances, but we're not well off either, that's for sure. And as I said, the TV has vastly more overheads to keep it going. So I would encourage you guys, if you want to keep watching Awake TV, to subscribe and donate to the Live Pulse News to keep it going. And I genuinely believe that they're trying to do a good job in every area, guys. Same kind of ethos as the Awake Radio is concerned. And I briefly discussed things yesterday with David about maybe changing the scope a little bit of what we're going to bring to air, or what Dave's going to bring to air in different sort of ways and forms. More medical stuff, maybe prepper stuff, shamanistic, esoteric kind of stuff too. So you are going to get a kind of whole range of things regarding the Awake TV, and support it, guys. It's simple as I know that most people out there don't have a great deal of money, especially in this economic climate. But a simple matter, given a very, very little amount of money, may be the deciding factor of being able to go on and not to be able to go on. So I'm asking you guys out there, anybody that's listening, to basically help as much as they can with Awake Radio, and try and donate or subscribe to the Awake TV as much as you can possibly afford. And if it's going to trouble you and it's going to cause problems in the family, I ask you not to do so. And but as I say, if you can, then good and well. And I really do believe that you will see benefits for the amounts that you may send. Okay, I'm going to get Vin James on, and I said about 1:15. It's yeah, sorry, I got distracted. Maybe health food, herbal websites would be interested in sponsoring the TV. Yeah, I would certainly warrant that. Somebody like Clive de Carroll, buy his product. I believe in the man. Something like that would be certainly along the right lines that I would be thinking. I think anything that gets promoted that way will be of the nature that we use the product, or it'll be morally right to try and help somebody maybe get established if what they were selling was on the lines of what we thought was right. Yeah, any ideas like that are welcome, guys. You can maybe, I was going to say maybe fire up some questions here, but I should be getting Vin in. Sort of changing tack here before we get Vin in. Vin is basically probably going to be attacking a lot of the Freeman stuff. We really try to show both sides of the story as much as we possibly can. We're probably a little bit biased on the conspiracy side, if you like, if you want to call it that. There's certain subjects that I don't believe that I'm in alignment with most people in the truth movement, or the free man movement, so to speak. But that's okay. This is what Awake's about. It's about putting the two sides of the story up there and letting both, well, not both, but let listeners listen to both sides of the story and decide for themselves. That is the truth of the matter. That we have to try and put something out there that reflects the truth, and we try and do that as much as we possibly can, but we can't get it right all the time. So the onus is on you to decide what's true and what's not. I would also like to point out this. Nimblehorse in the chat. Nimblehorse was a guest of mine many moons ago when I first started broadcasting, and I struck up a relationship with Nimblehorse. He actually sent me some pear trees and stuff which are still growing, which thank you, Nimblehorse. But essentially we did a show together, and that show was basically to show we both of us had different viewpoints but came to the same conclusion. Now, that maybe seem a little bit, oh, that doesn't make sense. In this construct, we do our research and find out, our truth, if you like, in what you think is right. But it may be that you're right and somebody else has had a wee walk along their path and it's right for them. And both understand at the end of the day that we still have a force, let's say, that's pooping on us from a great height, to put it pleasantly. And that show that I did with Nimblehorse, I've always remembered it, and I thought it was a great show, considering that I was a novice, and I think it was possibly Nimblehorse's first few times on air, maybe. I'm not entirely sure of that, but I really thought it was a good show. And it's really good to see you in the chat here, Nimblehorse, and I know I don't have a lot of chance to respond and chat and socialise with most of you on the chat. But keep that in mind, guys. Keep it in mind that your truth is maybe not somebody else's truth. And stick with it. Discern for yourself. And you might find that in the end you'll get there to the same conclusion as everybody else, in the sense of what the truth really is. I I really am kind of losing a lot of faith in a lot of the stuff that I heard as doing my apprenticeship, if you like, of this New World Order construct. I don't believe some of the things that I believed in the beginning. And I'm changing my opinion almost daily in certain other things now. I have the viewpoint that 80% of the truth movement is controlled. Much disinfo going out there. Your apprenticeship in becoming awake isn't knowing about 9/11 or whatever it is. Your apprenticeship is when you can discern for yourself what the truth is. Okay, Louis, hello everybody. Is this for Vin's call now? And yes it is. And I'm just about to call him. And what I'll do is I'll stick a little jingle on here first. It's just a bit of fun. And a tune for a Nimble Horse. And he actually requested this song get put on the show when we first went to air. And I rather like it, and it's been in my playlist ever since. So yeah. It's hopefully it should be a lively show anyway. And Vin, you get your Cockney dictionaries out, guys. For all you Americans out there, get your dictionaries, because he likes to throw in a few Cockney slangs and things like that in there. So yeah. Well, thank you for listening, guys, and we will really try and cover the 2 hours within there. I think that should be okay. I would only really planned maybe to come I'd only managed to plan to come to the air for a little while. Sorry, I'm getting distracted from the chat. Very amateur. Okay, folks, this is wee jingle up first, and the next tune up for Nimble Horse is Dennis Brown, Sitting and Watching. Welcome back to Awake Radio, guys. I've got Vin James here after Vin's normal sort of process with computers. Welcome to Granadas Workshop, Vin.
Yeah, thanks, mate. Yeah, problems again. I'm always this computer's getting attacked again. It's a newer computer, and it's my laptop, and it's a better one than the other computer, but which was always having problems. But now this one's starting to suffer from a lot of the same problems as well. So I wonder why. Yeah. Especially when you're sort of researching stuff, especially when I'm in some of these forums as well. I find that there's certain forums I can go on without any problems, and then others when I'll have nothing but attacks on the computer afterwards, or during. And funny enough, to get out of that free forum can be like that as well. I tend to have more problems with my computer when I'm on that than when I'm, using other forums as well. So it's the same when I sometimes try and get on Mark's forum. The computer just goes into shutdown almost. So yeah, they're definitely up to no good, So. So I must be doing something right because I keep putting blocks in my way, as I say. So there you go.
Yeah. Well, that was the thing that before when I was talking to you there, we couldn't hear you, and all of a sudden it came up. Can I ask you to turn your mic down a little bit more, Vin, and I can bring you up this end here. You're still a little bit loud.
Sure, yeah.
And,
is that any better?
Right, yeah. I don't think you're going into the red now, so yep.
Okay, I'll try and keep it as
a bit clearer. Yeah.
As thing is I can, I'll try not to sit too close to it, but normally I have the mic further away from me now, and it tends to work better, and now suddenly it's doing the opposite, so there you go.
Yeah. Yeah.
It wouldn't be the No State project if there wasn't gremlins always digging away at everything though.
That's it. Okay, you mentioned the No State project there. Would you like to give it your website and what you are? Because I think there's a lot of people probably in the chat here that haven't heard you. So that would be a good idea to maybe give them an idea who you are again.
Sure, yeah. Well, name's Vin James. I've been I've been part of the No State project, which was started up by Mark Stevens. His website is markstevens.net. That's Mark with a C. And Stevens spelt with a V. I don't actually have a website set up myself yet. I still haven't been able to get round to doing it, despite promises that I would. But I still haven't managed to do it yet. But I will hopefully at some point in the future soon get a website set up. And what it is Mark Stevens is he's someone who's been involved in the truth movement for quite a few years now, since the early 2000s. He wrote his book called Adventures in Legal Land back in 2002 or 2003, if I remember correctly. And he's just released his new book, his second book now, which in a sense is a prequel to that, called Government Indicted. And basically everything I do now is based off of what he's taught me and those books. So especially Adventures in Legal Land, the first book he wrote. So I mean, for now, if people need to get any more information, look on markstevens.net. But he does have a wiki site as well, which is actually very good, and it's called Adventures in Legal Land Wiki. You just put that in, and that should come up. I'll put some links into the chat room box a bit later if I remember. But if you just put either in Government Indicted, Adventures in Legal Land, or even Mark Stevens, you'll find plenty of information on what it's all about and what I generally do.
Cool.
So if that helps.
Yep, I'm sure it does. As I say, I think there's a lot of new listeners that probably haven't heard you, Vin, so yeah.
Well, if they also go to the Kent Freedom Movement, or the KFM as we call it, obviously, but if you check out their website, I've actually got a video on there of myself giving a talk. I think I did that talk about 3 years or more ago now. So it's quite old. I was a bag of nerves, first talk I ever gave on this subject. So, but if you watch it, it's in 2 parts, and if you go to that website and check that out, Debbie and Eddie who run that group are fantastic in the work they're doing, and worth checking their website out for other stuff as well, of course. And but you'll find my videos on there if you want to know more about what I'm teaching people over in Old Blighty. I mean, Mark's based over in America, of course, but a lot of what he teaches, in fact, most of what he teaches, still applies all over the world, in terms of how courts operate, even inquisitorial courts.
Sure.
So, there you go.
Can I ask you maybe to try and turn your mic down a little bit more, Vin, if you can?
Doing it again, is it?
Okay. Yeah, it's went up. You're just over-modulating a little bit. Sorry, I don't like to stop your flow.
No, that's all right, mate.
But
Exactly.
we'll give that a go anyway, and I'll post in the bottom here if you need to lower it again. You mentioned the Kent Freedom Movement, and that's one of the things that I've neglected. Kent Freedom Movement has our player on their site, and that, guys, we have a kind of decent relationship with the Kent Freedom Movement. But one thing another, guys, I really suggest that you go there. There's a lot of good info on that site. As I said, they've had our player on there for a long time now, and I've neglected to maybe advertise a little bit for them. So please, guys, feel free. Go and visit our friends in the Kent Freedom Movement. I think it's .ningo.com.
Yeah.
Okay, Vin, what do you have on your mind then? We'll set you
well,
up.
yeah, I noticed that you it sounded like you was a little bit worried about maybe what I'll be talking about tonight, but it's true. Everyone's entitled to listen to both sides of the story, and I generally I've always tried to do that, especially regarding a lot of these methodologies that are out there for taking on the courts. But what I wanted to talk about, and what I wanted to do, is use this opportunity to actually respond back to a lot of the hateful messages and spiteful, vindictive messages I've been getting through the Get Out of Debt Free website. I never used to use that site that much. I used to post up when I was doing workshops and other things, and I'd post up the odd story and success story that we'd had. But I never used to use it a lot until recently. But once I did start coming on, I started actually trying to warn people against a lot of these processes where they're getting themselves into trouble, especially this thing called the 3-letter process. And for all intents and purposes, even though it's still being preached on that particular website and on a few others as well, that this process works, the truth is it just doesn't. It doesn't work. And it doesn't work for the reasons that whenever you post these letters off, as people on these websites have always been posting up and coming back with, they're just being ignored all the time. And, they're getting replies back from either solicitors who are, that are acting for CCJs or for, credit card companies, banks, things like this, and they're not paying them any attention, then there's no merit to them as well, in the sense that they can't be construed as contracts or for binding these companies into contracts, which I believe, if I remember correctly, what a lot of these letters are about. It's about claiming that this is a contract now, and if you don't, submit to these terms and conditions that I'm putting down, then I can stop all you and all this other stuff. And this is the thing, and they're using this sort of three-letter process by saying, well, after the third letter, if they don't respond and if they don't prove their claim and all this stuff, then then they lose by default, and you win, and the courts have got to back off and leave you alone and all this sort of thing. And this isn't the case. This isn't what's happening with people now. These letters are just being ignored. A lot of the time, they're getting either these solicitors companies writing back to them saying, "We've got no idea what you're talking about. We're not going to pay any further attention to anything you're saying as far as these types of letters are concerned, and that's it. And we're still going to proceed against you, no matter what." And the problem is when obviously you're being taken to court, which is what happens to a lot of these people when they're trying to use this process, is that this stuff's being used back against them. They're being made to look stupid and foolish in front of the judge, and they're not putting anything forward that would give them half a chance of possibly beating these people in court. And, it's not the fact that some of the things that are in these letters are totally meritless. Of course, there are some sensible questions in there, like when you're asking them to show there's a proper contract and things like that. But the problem is that just because you've got one or two relevant questions that may be in there, or issues that may be in these letters, doesn't give that letter as a whole any merit itself. To show that a judge is going to uphold it or anything like that. Judges don't uphold these letters. And the thing is that you're getting people saying that they're getting successes. I had one of the moderators in there, I think it's called Lazzetti or something. He puts his name up as, and he was saying to me, I've got a success story. I can prove that this all works. And his version of a success story is he had to send a particular company about 20 letters, not 3. And he said it took about, I believe if I remember rightly what he said, if I'm wrong, you can correct me on this later. But he said that it took him about 2 years to fight a particular company off, and they ended up writing back to him in the end. And I saw the letter that he posted up where it said that, as far as they're concerned, for commercial reasons, they've decided to just drop the case against them, drop the debt against them that they allegedly bought. Now, that's a big difference between saying that only 3 letters are going to sort this out and make it all go away, to saying to someone, well, I had to actually send them 20 letters and spend almost 2 years doing it. And he may well have sent more letters than that, for all I know. But the thing is that you can't classify that as a win. Fair enough, they've backed off and left you alone and even written off the debt. But it's not based on the merits of anything that came from those letters, because obviously they ignored them. It's a hell of a lot more letters than that to finally get them to back off. And it was probably more a decision on their part of, this person's more aggro than it's worth to actually chase a few £100 worth of debt up, or even a few £1,000 worth of debt up. So we're just going to go on to someone, we're just going to drop this and go on to someone easy, because they don't want to keep getting into these paper attacks all the time and dealing with people who are constantly harassing them with letter after letter. Because they see it as harassment just as much as you see it as harassment when they're coming after you. And sometimes it's easy just for companies like that to just back off and leave you alone. And it's not because there's any merit in anything you're doing, it's just because you just cause them so much of a headache, which, fair enough, I'm all for. If it gets them back off in the end, but don't claim that your process works as such, because there's one thing between showing something works, because then you can show it's repeatable, and showing that what you're doing has actually got merit for it. So you can put forward something against the courts and show that it has merit, and it may not work. That doesn't mean that what you've done is wrong or is hasn't got any logic or reason to it. We can show that, because we can show that with this is what I show with what Mark shows with the motions and the applications of dismiss that we use. We can show that, we can demonstrate through the case law that we cite and through the logical path it takes, that this in a sense is bomb-proof. You can't argue it. we're using their opinions back against them. We're using their claim that you're meant to have a fair hearing and the grounds on which it's meant to be set. And that's what we use against them in our applications now. Just because you're using something that's got merit to it against the courts doesn't mean it's going to work, because you're not dealing with people who are acting rationally.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you're not dealing with people who are actually, going to be reasonable about it and say, yeah, actually, you are right. That is how we're meant to be, conducting this hearing. And obviously, the other side hasn't done their own work and put in a valid cause of action. And yes, you're absolutely right. We should drop this case and we're going to. You don't get that, and that's got nothing to do with you not doing your job properly or not putting in something that's that isn't worth the paper it's written on. These things are worth the paper they're written on, and they can't argue it, but they will just ignore it.
Yeah.
Because they can't be bothered to follow their own rules and regulations. Now, like I say, I never claim to any, I never turn around to people and say, use this application to dismiss and it's going to make all your problems go away. I'll usually lay the groundwork for. I'll say, regardless of this, I've just read out, I've just explained to you why this is valid. Yeah, this is a valid. Well, it's not even an argument. This is based on facts. What you're putting forward is the grounds on why they should drop this case against you. They haven't got a valid case against you, and here's the reason why. And this can't be argued, but they'll just ignore it.
Mm-hmm.
And the chances are, if they ignore it, you're still going to have a battle on your hands to keep fighting with it, and you've just got to go take it as far as you want or fight as hard as you can.
Sure. And
that's the best you can do, because this is all about damage control. You may be able to get these people to back off, you may not.
Yeah, and there's a question in the chat from Bogface. Steve has been saying that they are really employing delaying tactics ultimately. And I suppose that it kind of is in a way, but I'll let you answer the question.
Well, delaying tactics in the sense of, they're eventually going to come out, they're eventually going to do as they please anyway, but they could do that whether you're putting in delaying tactics or not. It's not really delaying tactics. You're bringing a valid argument, got to get away from that phrase argument. It's not really an argument. You're bringing a valid reason why, or rationale, as to why they should be dropping this case.
Mm-hmm.
So, if they're not going to do it, well, then it's obvious that you're not dealing with people who are going to be acting rationally or responsibly, and they've got no interest in giving you a fair hearing or not.
Yeah.
So, it's delaying, but it is damage control, because if you could delay, say, a case being brought against you, say 6 months or a year, while they get their act together and allegedly bring a valid claim against you, then that's a year you haven't got to worry about that anymore.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Or if you can get them to initially stop the attack and have to go away and regroup and try and come at you again with something else. That you may be able to delay. It's always, but it's still damage control. It's still either going to come back after you later, or if you do eventually get a case dropped against you, you might have had a year of your life taken from you.
Yeah. Fighting
the buggers off.
Yeah.
Fair enough. If you've still got them to drop it in the end, that's good. I'm all for that. Mm. However, whichever way you do it, whether it's through, a paper attack, sending them loads of letters, or if you do it using the methods or the model that we use.
Mm-hmm.
So it's.
I can interject there with a little thing. The model you use, I'll kind of reflect on what I kind of have come across with my travels and the Freeman stuff or the law stuff. I've known 3 people to lose their houses trying to use the Freeman stuff, and there's a lot of other stuff that's claimed to be useful, but actually what you're using is the statutes that are normal in everyday life anyway. So I've even heard people on air that have lost their houses, and I'm not mentioning any names. They've lost their houses and went to jail, and they're actually taking money for this advice that they're giving. The method that Mark Stevens uses would be the best method that I've come across, really. And I'm going to say this in a nutshell. I know it doesn't cover it all, but essentially Mark's saying when you're going to court or there's a claim against you, you're essentially saying is prove it. And I think that's a far better option than going to the court and saying, I don't recognise you, I'm not the name, and all these kind of things. How would you respond to that?
Well, that's right. Yeah, it's more than just saying prove it. It's having them show that they have a rationale for putting this case forward. Prove that you've got a logical case, a logical ground for bringing a complaint against me. You know, and according to their system only operates in legal terms. You know, that there's that prefix they have to add to everything. This is something that I added in one of the posts on the Get Out of Debt Free website. The term legal is a prefix that they sort of add to everything that they're trying to control. It's legal this, it's legal that, and it's the same way that McDonald's add the muck to everything that they sell, you know, the muck burger and the muck chicken burger and all this stuff, you know, or the muck chicken sandwich and all this sort of thing. They always have to add that prefix to it to try and impose their will and opinion against it, whatever it is, you know. So when you're I've lost my train of thought there, I'm sorry, but you know, but the thing is when you're challenging this in court, you're asking them to put forward a rational case. Mm-hmm. You know, show it's logical what you're doing. It isn't a matter of just proving it, because what they claim is proof may not be proof at all. It may be just opinion. Mm-hmm. You know, so facts aren't always opinions, and opinions aren't always facts, or should I say, that evidence does not always present facts, and facts is not always evidence. Just because there's a fact that these people have an opinion that these laws apply to you, or that you owe them money, or that you should pay tax, or that you should pay council tax, just because they hold that opinion, it doesn't make it a fact, therefore, that it's true. Mm-hmm. So, and they can show evidence that they had this opinion. They can bring up they can bring up these statutes. They can bring up people that, you know, they can show instances of people who have been prosecuted before in court and had liability orders against them. They can bring all that forward, but that in itself is not evidence to prove that you have an obligation to do anything or that you owe them anything. It's just that's what's called an appeal to consequences. That's just showing, see, because we've nicked half a dozen people, thousands of people before you, and we've got them to pay, that proves therefore you've got to pay. Mm-hmm. You know, and that doesn't make any sense, does it? You know, it's just saying, well, just because you can use that level of aggression against people, you claim you can do it to me. Yeah. That isn't a rationale. That's simply just a group of people saying it's because we say so. Yeah. So, and that doesn't help. And this is the thing with the Freeman stuff. You're getting a lot of people on these forums acting the same way. They're not acting any better. They're saying all this stuff is true because we say so. And I don't always put it in as many words like that, but that's how they're putting it across, or at least that's how they're implying it. There's one geezer who I've attacked on there, and he puts his name up as beneficiary on the Get Out of Debt Free website, and he posted up this long thread, big essay, calling it "Shush, I'll only say this once" and all this stuff, and he started going off into this big rant about how the legal system operates on this one thing called legalese, this one word called legalese. They get all their power over us through one word, legalese. And they're obsessed with word definitions and all this stuff. And then he starts quoting a loads of different words, the usual stuff, person, passenger, driver, you know, all the usual thing, all the stuff that I heard 10 years ago when Ron Menard hit the scene and they started, you know, defining all these words. And he started, and he's writing this down and he's putting it across as if this stuff is written in facts, as if it's written in stone. And that's the thing, and there's no evidence to actually back any of this up. And so I attacked him in the end and said, look, you've got this. Well, I never attacked him. I sort of, what's the word for it? I debunked him, you know. I added a counter to this and said, well, come on, you prove this is true. But what happened was I never actually asked him that. I put up evidence proving the opposite, that this isn't what bureaucrats are doing. This isn't how they're treating us. This isn't what they're thinking. This isn't how they go about deceiving us. It's got nothing to do with legalese. And I actually posted up a document that I found on the Bailey website, and it was a white paper all about legalese. And they were basically saying in this paper, quite a lengthy document, I think it was about 30 or 40 pages maybe. That might have been a shortened version of it, but it was basically saying how bureaucrats basically despise legalese. because it's seen as an overinflated language. It's convoluted, and even they can't understand it. And they've got to get back to using plain old English. And so when I started reading through many other books on this as well, that bureaucrats write, the lawyers themselves, they don't make a big deal about legalese. In fact, they prefer to use just plain English. And so they're not obsessed with definitions of words. They're not obsessed with this word called legalese. They just stick to plain normal language. And I even posted up some rulings that came up where they use something called the literal rule and all this sort of thing, where they're saying that if a judge rules in a particular case on a certain issue, they've got to do it using plain English, plain language, and not, something that's convoluted or abstract or can be misinterpreted. You've got to be very specific in the language that you're using and make it clear and understandable to everybody, especially the person whose life you're going to screw up using it against in that respect.
Mm-hmm.
So, and this is what I did. I actually posted up links. I posted up case law to back this up as well. And yet they still came back and tried attacking me over it. This is the thing. They don't like being proven wrong, but they hold on to these beliefs like a religion now. It has become a religion for these people. And like I say, they honestly in themselves believe this to be true now. They've convinced themselves, regardless of the evidence. They've heard this. All this came from gurus years ago on the internet. People like Rob Menard and then there are other people that did the Patriot stuff, the commercial redemption stuff and everything else. Then we had Dean Clifford come along. We've had other people come along, since then, especially Cole Lentz. He preaches this stuff just as much as the rest of them. But all this pretty much started with Rob Menard back in the early 2000s, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So, and he never put forward any evidence to actually back any of this up, apart from the occasional link to a so-called definition in a dictionary, which people have never been able to find. Only he's ever shown these specific definitions, and no one else has ever been able to find the exact same definitions anywhere,
right,
on the net or in any library by the looks of it. Mm-hmm. And yet, but again, if you only base everything that you're believing on definitions, well, that's a fallacy in and of itself as well. Yeah. It's what's called the appeal to definition, because the thing is with words is words change over time. They don't always mean the same thing 100 years ago as what they do now.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. So all it means is all the definition is an opinion, a commonly held consensus on a meaning of a word that applied at that time that book was written.
Mm-hmm.
And even then, people still haven't necessarily got to agree with that. It's just a guide. It's just to give you a better understanding if and when you need it. But you can't turn around and say that is the be all and end all of that word, and that's exactly what it means, and that's what you've got to live with. So when you use the word driver, you say driver means someone who's actually in commerce and they're actually taking a fee, which means that they're really only a taxi driver and they're not, therefore they're not travelling and all this stuff. Complete bloody nonsense. I'm sure that if I looked, which I have actually on Bailey, I'm not going to find anything yet, because it can be difficult to look at certain key phrases, but I'm sure if I'll get looking for this in the future, I will find a case where a lawyer or a judge will say something along the lines of the taxi driver was travelling down so-and-so street in London, therefore, blah, blah, blah. And so you will get an admission by the courts where they use the terms synonymously driving and travelling.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't make a distinction between the two. As far as they're concerned, driving a car means operating a vehicle, operating a car, or you can call it a taxi, but it's just got four wheels and a steering, four running wheels and a steering wheel, if you like.
Mm-hmm.
And you're operating it. It's a machine that's on wheels, and you're operating it. And it's synonymous with driving, and driving is synonymous with you're driving. Obviously, that car's moving, therefore you're inside it and you're travelling.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of mixing the language up and convoluting it, they just simply say you're driving.
Yeah.
And that's taken to be, and that's taken by even laymen. But obviously, you must therefore be, travelling in that vehicle. It's moving. You're going from A to B.
That's right.
So this is the thing. So I say that with this post, this thread that this beneficiary put up, he made a big deal about this, especially about it all being legalese. And then he made a big thing about the copyrighted name as well, saying that you're not a copyrighted name because the Crown takes your name and copyrights it, therefore they own you and all this stuff. And it's like, what a load of cod's all about was. So what did I do? I just looked up the copyright stuff on the Crown. I even got into the National Archives, got onto their website, looked it up a little bit, and funnily enough, they're not making any mentions copyrighting people's given names, and therefore claiming ownership of them and any of this stuff. You know, it's all complete nonsense. You know, unless you can actually bring evidence forward that it specifically says those sorts of things, or it at least gives you something prima facie to go on, then basically you have to reject these things because they're not true. You're making unfounded claims, unproven claims that these things therefore must be true. Therefore, you're just expecting people to believe it and go along with it, and saying that I'm not the name, I'm not the name, and all this no contract stuff. That was the other thing as well about this all being contract. I debunked that as well pretty much. There is no evidence to show that statutes are contract. Another argument he was trying to raise is that because statutes or acts and all this sort of thing because the courts only act against persons, and they keep on equating person as being a corporation, not a real human being. And what he kept saying is, I bet you there isn't any statutes out there that use the word men or woman or man or anything like that in there. And when I looked, it didn't take long, 5-minute search on the internet, and I found some, and it was the statutes relating to paternity leave and things like that. Because obviously women give birth to babies, don't they? They get pregnant. They're allowed to leave, have so much paternity leave at work. And be paid for it, and that's sort of why, because I need to bring up a baby, a real human being. That's not a person, in the sense that they talk about it, and all this sort of thing. And there was another one on equal pay as well, men and women getting equal pay. So the words woman, man, men, even children, youngsters, adolescents, all this sort of thing does get used in case law. Well, not just case law, but in acts and statutes as well. So to keep on saying that, statutes and acts are written in such a clever way that they never really refer to men and women or people, anything that describes us as being anything other than a corporation, well, that's complete bunkum, and I proved that was wrong. And it just goes to show these people make these claims about these things, and they can't even spend 5 minutes on Google looking for this stuff to see whether it's false or not. Mm-hmm. They just assume it to be true because they're set in their ways, they're set in these beliefs, therefore they're just going to be of the opinion, well, this can't be true because of this. But the thing is that this, they never prove it to be true either way. So, so this is where I totally pulled this argument apart, that he says that, acts and statutes of courts never act against men and women, real people.
Sure.
Because they do, and they do define between a person, a natural person as they call it, and a person, i.e. a corporation or something, whatever. And they state in case law, as I put up on this Get Out There Free website, but a corporation is made up of natural persons. It can't exist without people. So if you take people out of a corporation, you haven't got a corporation anymore. And they clearly make a distinction between the two, and they refer to persons as a person can be both. It can either be, a corporation, a business, a company, anything other, and they call that a legal person in the sense that it's created under law, under legal opinion. Mm. It only exists according to legal opinion. That's then putting that prefix of legal to everything again.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then they distinguish between a man or a woman, which they refer to as a natural person. But rather than calling them a natural person, you can still just call a man or a woman a person.
Yeah.
Same as we do in everyday language, in layman's language, and they do the same thing. So they do clearly make distinctions between the two, and they do claim, and they don't pull these games that these free, like I say, that these freemen are always saying, where when they're calling you a person, they're not really referring to you, the real man or woman, the real flesh and blood thing. They're referring to a corporation. You've got to represent that corporation and all this stuff. It's codswallop. That's not what's going on. You know what I mean? And there's no evidence to back this up. And in fact, there's more evidence to show that's not what's going on than there is to actually prove there is. And I've not seen any to show there is yet. And I say, and they do refer to corporations as they're made up of people, of natural persons. They can't exist unless you've got a real person representing it or acting for it. Now, the Freeman can jump on that and say, well, there you go, then it's still proof that you have to represent something and all that. No, it doesn't. People come first, the corporation comes last. And all it is a figment of your imagination. Or as they admit it, it's the figment of the illegal imagination. So these things only exist in your head. They're not real. Just because I decide to make Mickey Mouse Toys Limited, just because I write that down on a bit of paper doesn't make it real. It's just an idea that came from my head that I've now expressed on a bit of paper in writing. But it only really exists in your head. It doesn't matter what's scribbled on a bit of paper.
Okay, Vin.
Sorry, go on, mate.
That's all right. I'm just saying we've been on the air for about an hour and I need a little comfort break here. So when we go a tune or two, and we'll come back with a question from the chat if you like. And it's from Bugface again. Does Vin go into the courts? I think is what it was. Let me double check. And that'll kind of get you prepared for when we go back to air again. And
sure, okay, if you want to have a quick 10-minute break, I'll go and grab a cup of tea quick and
sure.
I'll get back and answer some more questions. That'd be great.
Okay, we've got the Awakening Speech for Ireland and Within Temptation Ice Queen coming up, folks. I hope you enjoy it, and we'll be back as soon as we can. Welcome back to Granadas Workshop, and I have my guest Vin James here of the No State Project UK and Awake host, and I'm glad to have him here because I couldn't talk for 2 hours. So Vin had actually asked this afternoon, could he get on to do a bit of a rant about the Freeman movement and stuff like that? It's not been a rant, it's been very informative. I think what Vin tries to do is actually very important. A lot of people have laid their houses on the line, or their cars on the line, or whatever, even their freedoms on the line, by going to court and using different approaches that, in my eyes, clearly haven't worked. As I said, I know 3 people at least that have lost their houses using Freeman stuff. I'm not saying it's not worth pursuing or looking at, or or even using, but I really do believe what Vin here is saying is valid. To make sure of your research, and don't take anything as a gospel until you research it yourself. Would that be a kind of correct assessment, Vin?
Yeah, I mean that sounds pretty much spot on for me. But it's one of these things. I'm not trying to tell people what to believe. I'm trying to help them learn how to think. I'm not imposing my beliefs on people in that respect, and I hope I at least ain't coming across like that. Because whatever I am claiming, I can at least back it up with evidence, or at least I always try to. And if I can't, well then there'll either be a reason for that, or maybe I'm just getting it wrong. I mean, that's perfectly, I'm perfectly capable of being completely wrong about all of this stuff. But until someone can actually come along and pick apart my points, and actually show where I'm going wrong, or at least come along with a workable, measurable model that can show that actually we're doing this all wrong, or we're going about this the wrong way. You can show a better model in order to explain a lot of stuff. Then that's great. I mean, the thing is with my view on this is my opinions will change according to what the data says. So if someone comes along and actually proves these theories to be correct, the straw man stuff and all that, great, I'll change my mind. And I'll apologise and say, I've got it wrong. Sure. But this evidence was never there to begin with. So that's the thing. My opinion will conform to whatever the evidence tells me, so long as the evidence is actually being interpreted properly. Yeah. So and that's all I try and help people try and do. It's about learning how to think and not what to think. I'm not telling you what to think. I'm not telling you this stuff is wrong because I believe it's wrong. I'm showing you it's wrong because the evidence is showing that it's wrong. nothing to do with my opinion in that respect. This is what the evidence is telling us, and unless I'm interpreting that evidence wrong, and someone could come along and show me where I'm going wrong, that is the best explanation for this for these conclusions that I'm coming to. So
I would agree. Okay, we've got Bogface fired a few questions in the chat to you, and I'll kind of read them out for the benefit of the listeners. I've lost them because the chats went up. Does Vin actually go to court? I think was the first one. Does Vin actually go into their courts? And the second question from Bogface is, has Vin dealt with personal income tax cases?
Okay. Yes. I'll go with the second one first. Yes, I have dealt with personal income cases. I've helped people in the past. Not personally myself. I've not been attacked myself yet on that front. But I've helped people out in the past when they've had to deal with the HMRC, and luckily enough, I mean, we have had people send simple letters to them asking for facts proving that they're taxpayers, that they have an obligation to pay tax, that the acts and statutes actually, there's facts proving they apply to them. And so far as I'm aware, I mean, there's a few people that I helped at least 2, maybe 3 years ago now. They never did hear back, and then never did get any more demands. So, as far as I'm aware, we actually had, even though I can't actually prove it, I never did hear anything back.
Yeah.
We have had them back off. I mean, one geezer, they were trying to come after him for about 15,000 quid, I think, and another fella for maybe about 30. It was about 27, I think, something like that. But they backed off. As far as I'm aware, they never did come back to me in these chats. They said, if ever you do hear back, let me know. We'll get back to it.
Yep.
But they never, I don't think we ever did hear anything back from them. So just in that small number of cases, it appears for now that, they've at least backed off and left them alone. That may not be the case every time I deal with someone doing this sort of thing. And in fact, I think, a mutual friend of ours who took on the HMRC, I did try to help him, but he still insisted on using many of these free-man methods. This is why he lost. This is why he never got anywhere with it. But yes, I mean, I've dealt with personal tax stuff with and helped people out. But Mark's got more experience in that than me, especially over in America. And I've helped people out with council tax issues as well. And I'm still, got this ongoing thing myself with council tax. I've still never paid them. And that doesn't mean there you go, I can prove a win.
Yeah.
But I just haven't paid them, and I've just gotten in a position now where I've got a rock solid appeal I can bring against them. Which once I've got a couple of other little issues dealt with over the next few months, that's something I'm going to be straight into as well. So I'll just keep people informed in that as I go along.
There's a regular member in the chat who hasn't paid any community tax ever. I'll not mention his name just in case it draws attention to him, but it's one and the same thing again. It's he's a little bit into the free man stuff, but he hasn't paid it. I personally haven't paid it when I lived in Scotland and England, and I'm now in Ireland, which there isn't any community tax, but I never paid it when I was there either. So there is ways out of it, sure. Yeah,
that's it. I mean, it doesn't mean they're not going to come back after it. It doesn't mean they're not going to try something eventually. It's the thing. It's still about resistance at the end of the day, civil resistance, non-violent civil resistance, isn't it? That's what we're doing. So I'm all for that still, but obviously you've got to be prepared for the fight that might come your way if they decide to start throwing punches at you. So, that's the thing. And as for going to court, well, yeah, I mean, I do go to court if I get false there. If I've got no other choice, I'm going to have to end up going in front of these people. And in many cases, I prefer to do that because when it's paperwork being sent back and forwards, they've got months or weeks to reply. They can write any old nonsense they want, especially when you're asking them questions, to actually come up with proof. They just come back with stock standard responses all the time. But when you're actually face-to-face with these people, you can't, unless you've actually got the evidence, you can't lie on the fly in the sense of, you're stuck in that situation. You've got to be able to think on your feet. And when you're taking bureaucrats on and you're asking them to show evidence as to the claims they're making, you can't wriggle your way out of that as easily. So I'd sooner be in court facing these people and cross-examine them and have them show themselves that they just don't have anything. They don't have a valid case against you. So yeah, I mean, I do go to court, and I know a lot of people within these three-man who like to stick with these three-man concepts. So I say, you never have to go to court, and you never should because you're submitting to their jurisdiction and this, that, and the other. And it's a matter of, well, look, it's not a matter of submitting to anything. These people are forcing you against your will. They've got more guns than you. If they really want to bring the violence down on you, or you know, stamp harder with that boot on your neck, they can do it. So you've just got to try and do the best you can to mitigate it. Like I say, it's all about damage control. Mm-hmm. You can't truly beat these people in the sense of you can win every case and every battle against them. You might win a few. But that doesn't mean it's a victory in the sense of you can repeat it and you can show everybody else out to do the same. But it doesn't work that way. You've got to pick your fights and you've got to pick them wisely. And if that means you end up having to go to court to face these people, then yeah, do it. Because, like I say, it's all about damage control. You're just trying to get these people to leave you alone as quickly as possible, with as less aggravation as possible to yourself.
Yeah.
This is all going to come about through numbers in the sense of if we get enough people resisting and even clogging up courts. Go to court, clog them up. It means some other poor sod who doesn't know what they're doing, and he's probably going to get shafted. Is maybe going to have another day's relief because you're holding a court up for a day. It's do it and clog the courts up and go. Force these people aggro, because this is eventually what's going to bring them down. It's people not cooperating with them and not bending over and just paying, even though eventually you may be forced to. Don't give it to them easily. So.
We've got about 15 minutes left or so, and I'm just going to mention the wee pod that you want me to play, and it's The Success of Non-Violent Civil Resistance by Erica Chenoweth. I think that's how you pronounce her name. And I'm just mentioning that just now before we have to go off. You have about 15 minutes left. Do you want to sort of go on the next 15 minutes yourself, or would you rather have a few questions?
I'll take a few more questions if people are asking. That'll be fine.
Well, Bogface again. That's good. That's what we want, is an interaction, and if we can help you. Can Vin give us Can Vin give us an illustration of any case he has dealt with recently in court with Mark Stevens' approach, and how it differed from the Freeman approach?
Well, every case that I've been to since I got involved in this, and that's going back to 2009, I believe. I've always used this model of questioning, this model of challenging them. And where it differs is that you're not going in there arguing with them. You're the quote that we like to use a lot, or I like to use a lot, is those who attack the rationale of the game and not its players or its most formidable adversaries. So you're attacking the rationale of what they're doing. They're claiming they're giving you a fair hearing. They're claiming they have a valid case against you. You're just challenging it. You're never going in there and you're arguing what you think the law is, or what you think is right and wrong, or that you think you're not the person, and all this sort of thing. You're not going in there arguing. If they want to call me Mickey Mouse or Mr. Vin James, they can do it. I don't care. It's all about, can you prove, first of all, you've got jurisdiction over me? Because to have jurisdiction, you have to, first of all, show prima facie that there's been a valid complaint or case brought against me. So that's generally what I do. So like I say, the differences with what I do with Mark's model, if you like, when you go to court, is that you're not arguing, you're not taking a position, and all you're doing is you're just asking them questions. You're asking them to prove, because the burden of proof is on them anyway. So you hold them to it all the way. You never. There's no point going in there with your own opinions about what you think is right and wrong. You use their opinions back against them. See, they believe that they have to give you a fair hearing, and they claim that they will. So fair enough, I'll hold them to it. If they want to turn around and say they're not going to give me a fair hearing, there's a chance I could even contradict that if I wanted to. It doesn't matter. Whatever they say, you can usually contradict it. So that's what you're going in there doing. You're not taking a position against them. You're certainly not arguing. And even when you put the application to dismiss to them to begin with, because this is one of the first things you do as well, just after you challenge jurisdiction, is that you're not. I lost my chain there. Sorry, but what you're doing is when you're putting that application in front of them, they'll turn around to you and say that, well, this is your argument. And it's like, no, this isn't an argument. This lays out the facts and the legal opinions that you people claim this case is meant to be operating under. And of course, you're claiming that there has to be the violation of a legal right, a breach of a legal duty, with damage, an injury or legal injury, as they claim it. So where in this complaint does it state any of those words or even make mentions of any of these elements that are supposedly meant to be in a valid complaint? Because I can't see them, I can't read them, and obviously I can read English. I'm not stupid. I know what I'm looking at. So since these elements clearly aren't written in this complaint, you prove that you therefore either explain that or show that you can somehow have jurisdiction over me based on that. Because according to your own rules and regulations, you can't even have jurisdiction to hear this case. So and that's how we challenge it. So, but when the freemen go in there, they want to start arguing about things. They want to put a judge on his oath and say, well, if you're not acting under your oath, then this isn't a proper court and all this stuff. And it's like, all an oath to me proves is who are they actually working for? Where do their loyalties lie? And all an oath shows me is that, well, okay, the only person they care about looking after here is the Crown.
Yeah.
And who's probably bringing the case against you? Probably the Crown. And even if it's not the Crown, and it's, say, a bank coming against you, it's still those rules and regulations that are drawn up for the Crown, on behalf of the Crown, blah, blah, blah. It all comes back to the Crown again. Mm-hmm. So if a bank's coming against you and they're saying, well, under this Act or the Credit Consumer Act and all that, well, who wrote all that stuff? The Crown again.
Yeah.
So either way, that judge is going to be biased because it all revolves around the Crown still, even if it's a bank coming against you. So that's all an oath shows me. So I couldn't care less whether they're on an oath or not, or whether they're going to uphold that so-called. Let them uphold it. They probably will, because all that oath actually means is that their loyalty lies with the Crown.
Yeah.
And that is who they look after. So they do uphold it in that respect. It's got nothing to do with giving you a fair hearing or following common law and all this stuff.
Yeah.
Because common law, at the end of the day, is still their bloody opinion anyway.
Yeah. Well,
they get to decide what it is. So who bloody cares what they think?
Yeah. Well, my idea of common law is the first stage of law slavery, in my opinion. And I know that to get back to that point where we have no law, the anarchist thing is going to take many, many years. I understand this, but that's my opinion of common law.
Yeah.
And
common law, as far as they're concerned in this day and age in the courts, is common law are all the collective statutes that are out there that they call law, plus obviously anything that isn't a statute that they still claim is right or wrong anyway.
Yeah.
Or legal or illegal, and that's common law. It's just an all-encompassing term that simply means that all the statutes we've ever written and anything else we say you can and can't do, that's common law. So that's it. That's how the courts view common law. And all this whole thing, I keep meaning to find this case. I'm going to post this up, but it's a case I found where they were defining what lawful and unlawful means. And what lawful and unlawful means simply means without lawful authority. So if it's unlawful, it means that you never had or asked for permission from us to do this thing. Or if it's lawful, well, you've either got our permission, asked for it, or otherwise, you're a copper and, you can do it anyway, sort of thing. But it's all about authorisation. It's all about asking for our permission or paying a tax or getting a licence or anything like that. That's what lawful and unlawful means. It's got nothing to do with right and wrong. So this whole thing of illegal and legal and then lawful and unlawful, when the freemen talk about it, it's got the way these people look at it, the bureaucrats, the judges, lawyers, all these sorts of people, the way they look at it is in a completely different way to the way you claim it operates or how it works or what it's defined as. because they just don't look at it that way. They look at the world through legal goggles. It's a very blinkered, it's a relativistic view of the world. It means what we claim is right and wrong is right, and that's the truth for us. And we're going to force that reality on you, because that's our reality. And this is the thing about when people say, I heard you mention this earlier yourself, and I don't mean to have a pop at you, but when you turn around and you say, well, your truth is your truth, and that's and someone else's truth, that's their truth, and that's what you have to and that's good enough. It isn't, because at the end of the day, the truth's the truth, regardless of either person's opinion. Truth is both relative and objective. It's relative in the sense of, if I ask you what colour you like, and you say it's blue, and I say, no, it's green, how the hell is that objective? It's relative to you that you like the colour blue. That's your truth. You think it's the best colour in the world. That's a relativistic truth.
Yep.
Because that's personal. That's something I can't take away from you, and I can't argue it and say, no, actually, that's not true, blah, blah, blah. No, you can't argue. That's a relativistic truth. But when it comes to an objective truth, it's something, well, if you leap off this 20-foot cliff, you're probably going to break your legs. And if you say, no, that won't happen, that's your truth, that's not mine, go on and go and jump off the cliff and find out what happens. We both know what's really going to happen, don't we?
Yeah.
Because that's the objective truth of the matter. That's what's probably going to happen. And that's irrelevant of whether you say, oh, well, that's your truth or that's my truth. That's what's going to happen regardless.
I would agree with that. I wouldn't take offence at that. I was generalising when I said that to some degree.
I know, yeah. But I mean, the thing is, it's like everybody has a sense of right and wrong, and generally we all agree on what's right and wrong. And that isn't relativistic so much, because that's us agreeing with what we see around us. That's the world we see around us. If you punch someone on the nose, it's going to hurt them, so you generally don't do it, because it's not a pleasant thing to do, and it's not right. It's not the right thing to do. It's wrong to do that to somebody. So we all agree on that, because we see the consequences, and we understand our actions have consequences on other people. So from a rational and a logical point of view, we all understand the difference between right and wrong based on that our actions have an effect on other people around us, and equally there's ours. And we generally prefer to be comfortable and in comfort and in good health, as opposed to the opposite. So that's how we judge what's right and wrong. So that's based on an empirical and an objective standard that we generally all share. That's our map of the world. That's where we all meet at.
Yeah.
Some people take, obviously, those behaviours to all sorts of extremes. But that's, as a general rule, because we're a social species, that's how we're hardwired to understand the world around us anyway.
Yeah.
So there you go. Any more questions? Sorry.
No, I was going to kind of say one to myself. I'll briefly have a look up through the chat, see if there's anything there. Oh, I'm not talking in the mic there. But in general, what you were talking about there, Vin, there's different approaches you can do, and I learned very early on that when the gun's pointed at your head, you're basically going to do what you're told with the law, and where the law is concerned. If they're going to play ball with you a little bit, okay, that's fair enough. But I mean, I've seen the cases where they just ignore everything and just do what they're going to do anyway. Yeah. So it's a very difficult opponent in that sense, I would say.
Well, that's the thing, and they have the numbers, they have all the guns, and it's very difficult to go as a single person to go up against that and try and win and fight it. And people have, and they come. It's not that they come unstuck. It's just that you've got to pick your battle wisely. Yeah. If you're going to resist against these people, then we need numbers to do it, and we need to do it smarter. So it's. I mean, this video hopefully you're going to be able to play later, or the audio for it. She explains this in the fact that we can have more effect being coordinated and using non-violent means of getting back at these people without having to put ourselves necessarily at risk, in order to make a change and really have an effect. Yeah. So that's the thing. History has taught us that, and that's the history that usually gets buried.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. We can make a difference. It doesn't mean that just because I say to people, crying out loud, don't put yourself at risk. And if you get pulled over at the roadside by the coppers, just say yes sir, no sir, give them the licence over, and hopefully you'll be on your way. And there's no point jumping out your car, trying to pick up a fight with them and start arguing about them. You're probably going to get yourself arrested, which is what happened to a particular fella on that website again. FedEx, I think his name is, and he's claiming, you know, they unlawfully arrested me and this, that, and the other. But if you watch the video, he got out of the car and started getting bolshy with them.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't take too kindly to that, and he wound up in handcuffs and locked up.
Yeah.
You know, and there was no need for it. He could have just as easily just walked away from that. And fair enough, what they didn't necessarily have the right to do or to inconvenience him in that sense. But there's no point putting yourself in that situation if you don't have to. Just humour them. You know, if they want you, oh, yeah, have it. You're a bunch of muppets. You don't know what you're doing this for. But there you go. There's the license. Now let me sod off. You know, and that's the best way to deal with it. You know, just humour these people. You haven't got to bloody, you know, have a face-to-face confrontation in that respect. There's better places to do it. I mean, if they'd have ended up with a not parking ticket, if they'd have ended up with some sort of fine or ticket, fair enough. Take them on in court, clog their courts up, attack the rationale of what they're doing, show that they haven't got a valid case against it, and attack them that way. Yeah. That's the best way to get back at them. That really cheeses them off, because how can they, you know, they're the ones that have forced you into their arena, and they're going to expect you at that point to bow and scrape to them. But when you don't, and you can actually put up a bit more of a fight back because you've got the opportunity to do that, because you can challenge them. Supposedly that's what we're allowed to do. We're allowed to challenge them. Once you actually do it and do it effectively, that really does get them rattled. Mm-hmm. You know, and that's more effective. You know, that I would have given him more kudos for doing that as opposed to just getting in the face of some copper at the side of the road and trying to start an argument with him, because the bloke ended up he just ended up in handcuffs anyway.
Yeah, yeah.
He could have just as easily have walked away from it. And I'm not saying, you know, don't worry, you're just giving in to these people, or, you know, when you're saying to people don't go using a three-letter process, you're giving in to the banks, you're obviously working for the debt collection company. You know, all this stuff that I'll get accused of. And it's like, no, that ain't what I'm doing. I'm not saying to people to give up and stop resisting and stop, you know, just pay up and stop arguing, sort of thing. So if you're gonna resist against these people, if you're gonna get back at them, if you like, and actually start bringing about a change, smarter ways and cleverer ways of doing it.
Yeah, pick your battles.
That's it. Pick your battles and go about it. Work smart and not hard. You haven't got to go writing 20 letters to get a debt collection company to back up from you. You can maybe do it with one or two.
Yeah, yeah.
Or if you're going to be forced into court anyway, challenge him there and give him a bloody headache. But if you do all that, you end up having to pay anyway, because you just, these people are just going to keep coming at you and not going to listen to words you're going to say. At least you've done something to clog the courts up and to stop some other poor sod, at least for that day. Mm-hmm. Getting screwed over, you know, you give them another day of life in a sense of, you know, and keep their money in their pocket. It's maybe only for a few hours or one day. And that's something. And if we could all start doing that and bringing their system to a crashing halt in that sense, that's going to be more effective.
Of course.
But people don't look at it like that. They want to go in there and they want to pick a fight. And believe me, I understand. God, the things I want to go into court and say sometimes.
Yeah.
But you just can't. Don't you think I want to call these people after names that they get called up, you know, on forums every 5 minutes? Of course I do.
Okay, Vin. We've got about 2 minutes, I think, before I have to play this video, and because the next show's coming on, and I'll, because of the way that I do it here, I'll have to hang up the call once we say goodbye here. Is there any last words and anything you want to say just before you go?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to post this up on the Get Out of Day Free website. I didn't get to every point that I wanted to address, but that's not a big problem. And yeah, I can do this in future as well. But trouble is, when obviously I'm typing on a forum, I'm not the world's fastest typer. I can't always put it across in a way that I'd like to, as easy as I can do either when I'm on radio or even when I'm face to face with people. So, you know, I'm still going to get people attacking me like this, and that ain't going to change. You know, because many of these people are so dug in with these dogmas. Mm-hmm. But, you know, I'm going to keep posting there for now, and let's see, you know, where this takes us. But, you know, this is basically just a response to that, to what's been going on that forum recently. I'm going to keep adding to it as best I can. So I'm just going to leave it at that for now. And thanks for giving me the opportunity to come on tonight and you know, get this off my chest.
No problem, Vin. I mean, I hope to be hearing from you soon on the radio. Your show's on the Wednesday for guys that aren't aware. We either play No State Project US and Mark Stevens if Ben can't do a show. And I believe that life's kind of getting less in the way, so hopefully we'll hear a little bit in the future from you.
Sure, yeah. I mean, is it Tuesday today? I'm losing the days a bit.
It's Tuesday today, yeah. So your show's tomorrow if you can make it.
Hopefully I should be able to make it. Yeah, I should be about tomorrow. So hopefully we can, get back to the grind again, and I can have my own show to have a good old rant again. So
Okay. Okay, Vin, we really are fast running out of time here. Thank you for coming on, Vin. I really do think you have parted good information and reasonable information that I think the listeners should listen to. So thank you from me. And
so, mate, thanks for having us on again.
No problem. And I'll speak to you soon. As I say, I'll have to hang up the call after I start playing this video. And to the listeners out there, thank you every one of you for tuning in. I was amazed that the people will want to hear what I have to say, and luckily you had Vin James to keep you occupied tonight. Hopefully, health permitting, that I should be here next week. And until then, you guys take care, and I will see you in the chat over the week. Thanks for listening. Bye for now.